How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just put them in the chat. A great answer. I know that politics can be really weird, especially these days, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out what's accurate information and whatnot. So, feel free to use this show as a way to help parse out some of that information. This is not a fighty show, this is not a debate show, this is just answering all of your good faith questions about politics. Because, I believe that people should be informed and engaged about politics. If there are people on the sidelines, then that's just bad for, democracy. So let's get everybody involved. Let's get more people engaged into what's going on. Let's get more people voting. And, let's use this show as a resource. So, if you got a simple question or a complicated question, what's up, Jot Puneet? Good to see you again. How's my audio coming in over there on Twitch? So yeah, just throw your questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great, sincere answer. Yeah. What else? Yeah, we're living in weird times, and there's a lot of misinformation out there and propaganda. Our information channels are highly unreliable, and so if you are a casual news observer, I have to assume it must be very difficult to parse out what is actually going on. And so this is the place where you can ask all your questions, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. If you're the kind of person that doesn't know a lot about politics or government and you have some simple questions that you are too embarrassed to ask people in public because you're worried that they will judge you, well, you can ask those questions here. And there won't be any judgments, there won't be any roasting, there won't be any debates. It doesn't matter. What's up, Average Joe? Good to see you again. It doesn't matter if you are somebody who, voted Republican or voted Democrat or a third party stand or an independent or a centrist. Everybody is welcome here. There's no judgments. There's no roasting. There's no debating. This is not the show where I call people up and then I debate with them or call them stupid or, we try to own each other. There's no owning here on the show. It is just good faith answers to all good faith questions. Veronica, you 100% can ask something. Throw your question in the chat. So yeah, any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get rolling as soon as these questions get posted. I understand it, we are a divided nation right now, not only just politically, but also Veronica says, why should I vote Trump? I don't think you should vote Trump, Veronica. And also, he is ineligible from running for a third term. So voting for Trump is not even on the table at the moment constitutionally. So yeah, Undercooked Egg says, "Hey, watching from Scotland, how's your day been? It's been okay so far. Pretty. It's relatively early here in America, so but appreciate you being here, my guy." Veronica says, "Who do you think I should vote for?" Well, Veronica, I would say, what is an issue that you think is really important? DJ says, "Hey, Jarrett, haven't popped in for a bit, but hope you're doing well." I hope you're doing well too, DJ. Ryan says, "Is there a difference between Republican and Democrat politicians?" There 100% is a difference between Democrat and Republican politicians. There's an argument that I sometimes see made over the internet about both sides are the same. They're both bought by the billionaire class. There's not really two parties. It's just one party, and they pretend to fight amongst themselves. But the data doesn't really bear that out even a little bit. Like the outcomes are different, both on the federal and the state level. Uh, you know, Data shows that Republican politicians lie more than Democratic politicians. The platforms are different. Yeah, it's the differences are stark, and I think it is clear that the Democratic Party is, superior to the Republican Party as far as like where their platform and politicians are concerned. I'm very critical of the Republican Party, but I want to make clear that I am not as critical of voters. So if you're a Republican voter, I'm not saying that you are bad. I just think that the politicians and the platform, and also the talking heads like Ben Shapiro, are bad. Alrighty. Let's see here. Veronica says I'm pro Jesus, against abortion, immigrants, and the LGBT. Well, okay, I understand that religion's really important to you, Veronica, but I think it's weird that you would say that you're pro Jesus and against immigrants, because that was one of Jesus's whole fucking things, was in accepting immigrants, and loving your neighbor and feeding the poor and clothing the unclothed and housing the unhoused. Is that not how you feel? Veronica, Poppy Harless says, do you think Zohar Mamdani will win the New York general election? I mean, all the polling says that he's running away with it, but I just want to make sure that everybody in New York City knows the billionaires are not done with Mamdani, even if he does win. So if he mirrors your political, ideology, then the work does not stop, even if the polls are good, even if he wins. Almighty says, yeah, we're cooked here in New York. What do you mean by cooked? Like, I think Mamdani is going to be really good for the city. Keyhole says, what are your opinions about Israel? I believe that the citizens of Israel are the same as citizens everywhere. They deserve the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The government of Israel is a fucking nightmare. It is an authoritarian fucking fascist regime that is hyping up their feud with Hamas so that Netanyahu can stay out of prison. They have done war crimes against the people of Palestine, and many independent organizations, including those within Israel, are calling what they are doing a genocide. So I think that is clear, and I would hope that the people living in Israel would do the right thing and vote against the Netanyahu politicians going forward. Veronica says Mamdani will burn New York to the ground. You know what, Veronica? I was suspicious of you, and my suspicions have been confirmed. All right. I love being Nicole says, do you live in New York? I used to live in New York. I lived in New York for 20 years, and now I no longer do. Ryo Angel says, what's up with Hamas? Hamas is a terrorist organization that is technically the governing body of Palestine. And many people believe that the reason why the Palestinians voted for Hamas to be their governing body is because of the atrocities that Israel had, performed against the citizens of Palestine. It radicalized them to want a more aggressive governing body like Hamas. Right. Let's see here. Keyhole says, and what about AIPAC donating billions of dollars to both sides of Congress? I mean, so a couple of things. Number one, I just want to make it clear that AIPAC is a disastrous organization, that their funding of politicians is a net negative on our politics. The influence of AIPAC is clear. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of influence. The streets are littered with the bodies of politicians that tried to stand up to AIPAC and then found themselves losing their reelection bids. It is a little bit more complicated than saying that everybody should just not take AIPAC money, because there are a lot of politicians out there who, if they did not take AIPAC money, then they would be guaranteed to lose their reelection because they need that funding to win their elections. And just because you take money from a group does not necessarily mean that you're going to acquiesce to all their demands. I would much rather have a Democratic politician who I believe will potentially stand up to AIPAC than a Republican politician who I can guarantee you will not stand up to AIPAC and is probably, in fact, on board with all of their worst impulses. So, yeah, I also think there's a weird focus on AIPAC and Israel right now that I worry is kind of like has a foundation built in anti-Semitism, because there are lots of other organizations that are poisoning our politics with billionaire dark money donations, like the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. But for some reason, AIPAC is the only one that we have a problem with. Seems kind of sus to me. Right, Mr. Lama says, what are your thoughts on the state of things? I mean, we are living in an extremely terrifying time where the current American government is openly courting fascism, dictatorial, authoritarian shit. Our president is literally the most corrupt human being on the planet. He has a cryptocurrency where he is currently accepting bribes from dark money, donors in the billions of dollars. It's fucking psychotic. We're building concentration camps. We're wasting all of our fucking tax revenue building concentration camps and funding ICE, and we're cutting, research into cancer drugs and other technological advancements. We're firing immigration judges. We're firing people from the government, then having to scramble to get them back because we actually found out that we needed them. The number of things that the Trump administration is doing to ruin American lives and make this a worse country are so many that I could just sit here and rant about it for an hour, never repeat myself, and also I would be forgetting like dozens of things. Mr. Pickle says, "What did you think of Trump's speech at the UN? It was embarrassing. It was full of lies, and it was dumb." All right, let's see here. Mind and Soul at Peace says, "Politics is Satan's religion." I don't think that that's accurate at all. Average Joe PG says, "As a Jewish person yourself, what is your opinion about the TikTok trend with Israelis mocking Palestinians?" I think it's disgusting. I think anybody, if you as a Israeli person mocking Palestinians, if it's Palestinians mocking the people that died on October 7th, like, it's disgusting on both sides. I think it's particularly disgusting if you are the more powerful body. So Israel obviously is the more powerful body in the conflict between Israel and Palestine. And so for you to be taking your privileged position as the citizen of the country that is better protected and has more money and stronger military, to then take that position and then mock those that you are subjugating and marginalizing, like, it's disgusting. Like, I do not have strong enough words to deride what those people are doing. And it's not helping. Like, it's not helping anything where, we are trying to emphasize the distinction between the government of Israel and the citizens of Israel, where we can condemn the government, but the citizens are multitudinous, and there are plenty of people living within Israel who are against what their government is doing and also think it is monstrous and are doing the work of trying to get Netanyahu and his ilk out of government. But then this fucking happens, and it paints the entire citizenry as that. And, it increases anti-Semitism because you are looking at people who a strong part of their identity is being Jewish, and then they are putting their whole Jewish ass out there and saying that this is what Jewish people think and believe. Like, yeah, it's it's awful, you know. Eric Ruiz says, "What's the deal with the blatant bias of the NFL?" I'm unaware of what the rhetoric is around the bias of the NFL. Like, are you talking about like the coaches or the fans or what? Tap says, "What do you think of George Soros?" I don't really think about George Soros all that much. He is one of the few billionaires that assists in funding Democratic politicians and advancing left-wing ideologies. So I think he's probably a net benefit for America's politics. But he's a great boogeyman for the right, which I also think is kind of stupid because most people on the left never fucking heard of the guy. Oh, okay. Nick V says, "Tylenol company said on Twitter not to take their product while pregnant in 2017. So what's the truth?" I don't know if that's accurate, Nick V, because every doctor is saying that there is no real tie between a danger of Tylenol and autism in children. When a woman is pregnant, there are a lot of things that change about what they can and cannot do. And so everybody who is pregnant then takes a very, strict attitude towards what they put into their body. And so I don't think that pregnant women are, taking Tylenol willy-nilly, but if they need it, it is like one of the only drugs that is safe for them to take. Right, Nick V says, "Then why would they say that?" I don't believe they did say that, Nick V. I'm just gonna go on the limb and say I don't trust it. Alrighty, Diego Vargas says, "Even when Trump leaves, will our allies trust us again, knowing that half the country is nuts?" So I don't think that half the country is nuts. I think that half the country has been lied to and is living in an environment that incubates a lot of the conspiracy theories and bounces them around, allows them to grow and thrive. But what do our allies think? Even when Trump is gone, I think that America has proven itself to be an unreliable partner, and so You know, like a person who has been credibly accused of being toxic in relationships. America is going to have to do a lot of work to rebuild all of our alliances and trade agreements to prove that we can be reliable going forward. But you know, where that work begins with us. That work begins with us electing better politicians and, you know, actually having some fucking adults running the country instead of a bunch of, you know, fucking, you know, circus performers, you know. Taco Cat says, we're unreliable. The UN just mocked our president. No more alliances. I mean, the UN should have, you know, mocked our president. He was acting like a fucking psychopath. Delano says, have you looked into Election Truth Alliance yet? 2 days of asking. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that, Delano. Yeah, I've seen the Election Truth Alliance, and it's like I get it. I know that these statistical anomalies exist, and that it makes us want to question whether or not our country could have done something like electing Trump and a bunch of Republicans. But the two things that I would say about that are, number one, I have not seen any credible data to suggest that votes were changed. I have only seen the regular cheating that Republicans do, like closing down polling locations in Democratic areas and massive campaign finance violations. The Rockland County case is the only exception, but we're still waiting. We're still waiting to see how Rockland County turns up. But where just the statistical anomalies are concerned, there is other statistical data that kind of confirms that our election was free and fair. You know, they did soft audits in the swing states. It matches the trends across the nation, not just in the swing states, but in blue states as well. You know, the Rockland County case could turn this all up on its head, but just where we're looking at statistical analysis, it is far from, you know, definitive. Alrighty, Fog War Production says, I want to ditch NATO and use the OAS to turn the Americas into an island fortress. I mean, that's an interesting idea, I guess, Fog War Productions. I suppose we can, you know, I suppose we can put that in the maybe pile. Taco Cat says, yeah, they totally didn't sneak a frail old man into power under the fake pandemic. You know, Taco Cat, you're not going to believe this, but I knew you were full of shit when you first popped in here. Diego Vargas says, you think Trump is a symptom of all the untreated problems this country has had for decades? I mean, an argument could be made. I think that it is much closer to being a confluence of, what's the word I'm looking for? Confluence of motivations between right-wing politicians, religious extremists, and the billionaire class, where they kind of like have this, you know, soft alliance together where they agree on collecting on whipping votes for one side of the political spectrum because that political spectrum will adhere to their you know, adhere to their policy platform. That plus a, you know, growing sentiment of cynicism because of problems not being solved because of that coalition between those bad faith actors. You know, it's complicated, man. You could write an entire book about it, I believe. Sahaj says we shouldn't be subsidizing Asia and Europe's defenses. God bless Trump and his efforts to save our. That's not a question, S.A. Hodge. So congratulations, you're out of here. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom. Delano says, thoughts on TrumpFile.org. I don't know what that is. Diego Vargas says, after 2012, Republicans thought they would never win the House again. Now it's the opposite. I actually don't know if that's accurate, Diego Vargas, because in 2010, the Republicans began their massive gerrymandering campaign to combat the popularity of the Obama administration. And that is where we started seeing Democrats losing a lot of their support. So yeah, you know, I can't remember. I believe Democrats held the Senate in the midterms in 2010, but lost the House. So I doubt that the Republican sentiment in 2012 was that they would not win the House again. Especially after, you know, that's 2 years after the redistricting happened, so they would have already put their maps into place. That would have given them an unfair advantage. Astro87 says, why are liberals shooting everyone? Liberals are not shooting everyone. Astro87. Ken Damron says, Democrats are finished. That's not a question, so you're out of here. Congratulations. Scrolling down to the bottom. Trent Bitzer says, you must mean the gerrymandering Illinois, Massachusetts, California, etc. I know what you're doing, Trent. And so if you really would like me to comment on the gerrymandering in blue states, I will. But I honestly don't believe that you are here in good faith. So if you tell me that you want me to engage on that, I will. But honestly, I'm probably just going to end up blocking you because I don't think you're going to hear anything that I'm going to tell you. What's up, you goon? Are you live or is this a restream? I am live. Restream is just the website that I use to push my thing out to different platforms. All right, Trent Bitzer. Still waiting on you, Trent Bitzer. Are you here in good faith? I don't think you are. Trent Bitzer says, funny how you will not answer that and just block. Well, you just proved my point, man. I asked you to prove to me that you're here in good faith, and all you did was say that I just block people, you know? So there you go, my guy. All right, let's see here. Rio Angel says, liberals aren't shooting everyone. Bro, I'm out. Just tell the truth already. They're not. There is way more political violence that comes out of the right. If you look at any successful political assassination over like the last 80 years or so, it has been mostly left-wing politicians getting got and right-wing politicians not getting got. So yeah, you know, it is weird to me that there is this idea in your head, Rio. I don't even know if you're still here. That liberals are out there shooting everybody because the data does not match that. And maybe you feel that way because you saw a lot of news about one person shooting one person who we don't even know if that person was liberal. But yeah, you know, if you're still here, I would just say please get your news from other sources. Ashness says, what's your opinion on Jill Stein's presidential run? I don't think that's happening. She's number one, she's extremely old. Number two, she's not a political person. She's not very popular. Yeah, I would not support a Jill Biden run for presidency. Saint Monkey says, have you noticed that there are hordes of right-wing weirdos in here today? You know, there usually are. It goes up and down, you know. Delano says, thoughts on the balance between international law and national sovereignty? I mean, obviously it's complicated, you know, and it depends on which nations we're talking about. Like, you know, is there a country that is violating some international agreement that probably that necessitates us violating their national sovereignty, or is this an example of American overreach and overusing our military to, you know, access resources for our extremely profitable corporations, you know, to exploit? Enrique says, dating trans women. That's not a question. Enrique says, just say the name, bro. Just say the name of who, my guy. Enrique says, hey, what's up? And from what we know about his lifestyle, he seems liberal. I mean, based on what he engraved on the bullets, it seems like he was a groiper, Enrique. But I understand where you're coming from. I also don't think it really is important what their politics are. Like, I can point you to a lot of other shooters who had right-wing politics. I think what's important is asking who with their massive platforms is inciting this violence, and the answer is that it is coming from people with huge platforms on the right, because everybody with a huge platform on the left is denouncing violence and encouraging people to not be violent and to do nonviolent resistance, and to do things like voting, where you got guys like Donald Trump out there encouraging his supporters to do violence and saying beat the shit out of reporters and I'll bail you out of jail if you do violence. And then he had his supporters do a fucking coup, and then he bailed them out of jail as well. Let's see here. Enrique says he was calling Charlie a fascist, which is a left-wing talking point. I mean, it's accurate calling him a fascist, but, you know, that is also a Groyper meme, is to say, hey, fascist catch. Like, it all comes from online culture, Enrique. So, but again, I don't think that it matters what his politics was. Do you care that the guy who assassinated two Democratic senators in Minnesota seemed like a guy from the right, Enrique? Is that something that you think is really concerning? Or is it just when somebody who we think might be left-leaning does violence that you think it's concerning? CG Bake says, you know about the Erica Kirk being part of Romanian missing kids claim? I don't know anything about that. That seems a little, what do you call it? It seems a little conspiracy theory-ish. Apple user says, this beta is lying. I wasn't a beta when I fucked your mom last night. That's for darn sure. Okay, scrolling down to the bottom. All right, Apple user. Cannot wait. I'm so happy. I am so unbelievably happy that I blocked you. Suz Not Sorry says, yeah, he sounds biased about left and right. I'm not biased. Ask me anything, you know. I will give you as unbiased and you know, and sincere of an answer as I can. Sue's Not Sorry. Alrighty, let's see here. Fletch Lives Again says, please see my question above. We can send Democrats, Republicans, anyone there who wants info. All right, yeah, let's look at this. Don't like use own firearms, but their first two sin blame at liberal shooter. I think I know what you're saying there, Andrew Mitchell. I think I pretty much agree with you. All right, gotta find this question from my guy Fletch Lives Again, that Trump should be removed from office. What do you think about creating a website that collects all credible sources of info that proves that Trump should be removed from office? Yeah, I don't think that's probably. I don't think that's going to be the thing that really nails Trump. But I think it's probably a useful tool. I think every little bit counts. What's up, Digital Foods? Good to see you again. Luck Curse says, "Are you German by any chance?" No, I am not. Average Joe PG says, about the TikTok trend I asked about earlier, do you feel it's a racist attitude that they're just not afraid to show, a growing trend and therefore more visible, or just the most extreme examples getting more attention? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the polling breakdown of sentiment is in Israel. I don't know what their voter participation numbers are, so I don't know if their government is representative of the way that the majority of Israelis feel. But yeah, I think that it is probably more productive to assume that those people just fucking suck than to assume that that is how everybody in Israel feels. The same way that a right-wing person calling you a beta cuck is probably not an example of how every Republican voter feels, but is just that person being a jerk. And the same way as if you see somebody on the internet being a real, a stickler about purity politics on the left and saying you don't technically count as a lefty or a progressive if you say or do these things. I think we should assume that that person is a jerk and fucking sucks, and not assume that they represent the entire left. Lightworker says, "Oh, Jarrett, of course you are biased if you are not siding with them. Siding with who, Lightworker? Are you being sarcastic? I think I know what you're saying." Dan Blackboard says, "Can someone else make that website? I wouldn't attach my name to that, but I would support it." I mean, yeah, the way that the government is currently coming down against dissent, and Pete Hegseth is having a fucking secret meeting with all the heads of the military at Quantico right now. Like, what the fuck? Like, we should all be really fucking worried about that shit. Luke Curse says, "Oh, I thought you are because of your surname." No, for reasons that I probably don't need to explain. A lot of Jews did not want to stay around the German area. Let's see here. Delano says, "What is your confidence that the original Epstein file still exists?" Low, I would say. They've been in the hands of Kash Patel's FBI for too long. All right. Ali N says, "Are you going on tour anytime soon?" I actually just got my tour dates, and my first show is not going to be until December of 2026. So my boss is having a baby, and so he is going to be off the road for a long time, which means that I'm going to be off the road for a long time. Susie says, "With Hexex in charge, we are cooked." I don't like saying that we're cooked, Susie. But yeah, it is fucking concerning. It is unbelievably fucking concerning. Allie says, "Are you coming to Denver?" I don't believe I'll be as close as Denver. I know we'll be in Nevada and New Mexico, but again, that's over a year away. Sue's Not Sorry says, "You don't sound biased, but your commenters often do." Well, Susie, I would say let's not judge people based on their online personas. Let's not judge, people based on 140 characters. Let's all be, what do you call it? Let's all be chill AF, y'all. All right, scrolling up. Enrique says, "Completely avoiding a real conversation." I'm not avoiding a real conversation, Enrique, but I get a lot of comments here, so I'm just working my way through them. Diego Vargas says, "Will Katie Porter run for office again?" I don't know, but I sure do hope so, because I liked her a lot. Enrique says, "Just reading his favorite comments that side with his biases." Again, Enrique, no. And also, you are not doing yourself any favors if you're trying to get on my live stream. Alrighty, let's see here. Diego Vargas says, "What benefit do we get for protecting Israel, who is not an economic powerhouse?" I believe that the old justification was that it was our foothold into the Middle East, and it was very valuable to have military access there. Like, we could land our planes there, and we could, park our boats there and stuff like that. But, excuse me. I honestly think that our affiliation with Israel is way more damaging to America now than it is positive for the globe, even if it was at any point positive for the globe. So yeah, I think that we really need to. Immediately we need to stop sending money and weapons to Israel, because they have been found to be guilty of war crimes, and have been found to be doing a genocide against the people of Palestine. So yeah, that is like rule number one. And then rule number two is using other means of soft power and diplomacy to get Israel to stop doing all the shitty things that they are currently doing. Alrighty, let's see here. Delano says, Greater Israel, real or conspiracy? I don't know what Greater Israel is. Sue says, we give Israel billions and they have free healthcare and college. Yeah, must be nice. Let's talk. Diego Vargas says, we already have bases all over the world. Israel's a toxic ally. That is completely accurate. Everything you're saying there is accurate. Alrighty, let's see here. Diego Vargas says, do you think we'll have Don Jr. running for office in the future? 100%. After Trump passes away, there's going to be a power vacuum, and everybody's going to be trying to inherit the throne. And if your last name is Trump, you probably have a step up. Chris Seagirl says, so are we really going to lose our democracy? We will, Chrissy, if people like you and me don't do the work of trying to save it. But if we just sit on our hands and hope and pray that somebody comes and saves us, then we're fucked. Alrighty, let's see here. All right. Let's see here. Scott Clower said that a Fox News host just said that we should explode the UN, and yeah, that should be fucking concerning, of course. All right. Diego Vargas says, was Biden the biggest political loser in the last century? Lost House, Senate, White House in 4 years. Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I might go George W. Bush with that. Like, after the Bush administration, not only did we elect Obama, but we were able to get a supermajority in the Senate, which the Republican Party has not had in recent memory. Maybe in 2000, maybe after the Clinton administration. I don't remember. But yeah, filibuster-proof majority and the House, and a majority in the House and the White House. So yeah, I probably go W. Bush on that one. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the Dan Blackbird says it was Jesse Waters. Fucking of course it was. That guy fucking sucks. Sue's Not Sorry says, how do I save our democracy in Texas? There is work for you to be doing in Texas. Sue's Not Sorry. I would recommend you check out the link in my bio. If you go to my Discord, there's a thread called The Work. Are you familiar with Discord, Suze? Do you know how to use it? Not a lot of people do. You know, even young whippersnappers myself, who are 46 years young, are uncomfortable with Discord. But yeah, if you live in Texas and you want to do some work to try to help save politics in Texas, I think that is a great goal. And in fact, I believe that Vote Save America is looking for people to work with in Texas, and so I would send you their website as well. Right, but yeah, check out my Discord. There's a thread called The Work, and that is what I say everybody should be doing if you are concerned about what is currently going on in our government. Right, runforsomething.net. I fucking love Run for Something. It's Rocketeer says, so you're saying I should be a double agent, change my last name to Trump, and infiltrate the organization as a long lost child? Yeah, I think that the idea that there are some, illegitimate Trump children out there is probably wildly accurate, just based on the, activities of the fella in question. Alrighty, let's see here. Oh, do you like it when I do that, Enrique? Diego Vargas says, thoughts on Kamala speaking out against Biden officials a little too late after the damage is already done. I think that it's a fair hit, but I also think it's a little hypocritical considering the cover that she ran for the Biden administration when she was the vice president. In reading Jake Tapper's book, it does not seem like she was fully aware of what was going on within Biden's inner circle, but she was close enough to have known that some of the things that she said were inaccurate. And so, yeah, learning about the things that she said, learning about what she knew during the Biden administration, it has kind of turned me off to Kamala Harris in a way that I wasn't before. And so, but I do think it's a fair hit, like it is mainly the fault of people like Hunter Biden and Jill Biden and people in Biden's inner circle that America and the Democratic Party were gaslit into believing the stories about him being cognitively perfect. All right. Let's see here. Chad Bitson says, can you explain in detail how Trump could lose at the midterms and what happens if he does? So if Trump loses at the midterms, then he will, it depends on how big the loss is. If Democrats get the House but not the Senate, then number one, Trump won't be able to pass any more legislation at all. The House will have more authority in subpoenaing people and having investigations, and you only need a simple majority to impeach a president. And so I think it is likely that Trump will get impeached again. Whether the Democrats have the Senate means that Trump would not be able to appoint any more judges. It means that the vote in the impeachment inquiry as to whether he should be removed from office will potentially go further in that direction, though it is unlikely because you would need the Democrats to win every single Senate seat that is available in the midterm elections. And so, in detail, how could Trump lose at the midterms? I think it's obvious. Like, he is wildly unpopular. I think the only way that he doesn't lose the midterms is through, the kind of cheating and lying and corruption that he is currently engaged in, and the way that the Republican Party always lies and cheats to try to win elections. The way that he is encouraging gerrymandering in red states to try to make up for how unpopular he is, closing down polling locations in Democratic areas, potentially using the military and ICE to intimidate voters in Democratic areas. Like, I don't put anything past the Trump administration as far as like how they're going to try to squeeze out either a victory or a less embarrassing defeat in the midterms. Apple user calls me a hypocrite. Well, that's not a productive thing to say. All right, scroll down to the bottom. Alrighty. Obis says, I hope that Texas gerrymanders too aggressively so we end up with more seats. I mean, that is a possibility as well, Obis. Captain Tripp says, America is not a democracy. We have a constitution, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, having a constitution does not make something not a democracy, Captain Trips. And don't think I didn't remember you from last time, Captain Trips. I don't think that you were here in good faith. Amy says, do you think there's a possibility that he could call off elections somehow? So there's what Trump can do and what Trump can get away with. He can't cancel elections. Like, that is not part of his authority. He will try, potentially. He might try to declare martial law and cancel elections. He might try to declare martial law and install himself as, like, president dictator for life because America is in a state of emergency because of an influx of immigrants or whatever excuse he decides to try to use. Will he get away with it is the open question, though, Amy, because the Republican Party is not interested in holding him up to constitutional standards. The Department of Justice, his Supreme Court, is not willing to hold him accountable for all of the illegality and corruption. So he does things that we, the American people, let him get away with because the people that are in power right now are not interested at all in, holding him accountable and stopping him. So yeah, he will try. It is not something that he's allowed to do, but whether or not he gets away with it, again, is an open question. We need us to stop him. Chrissy Girl says, how do we fight against him if he declares martial law? So that's what I call the work, Chrissy Girl, and it is... The good thing about the work is that you don't need to wait for anything to happen. It works in election cycles. It works in off-election cycles. It works in November. It works in January. It works if you were in a blue state or a red state or a purple state. But it is a lot of different things that you could potentially do. And that's another advantage to the work, where you can make it fit into your schedule and fit into your life. If you live in a place where you fear for your safety, if you go out there and try to encourage people to vote against Republicans, there are other things that you can do. There are other organizations that you can work with that you can keep your anonymity, and you don't even have to leave your house and stuff like that. But yeah, if that is something that you're interested in, I say go to my bio, click on the link, go to my Discord. There is a whole thread called The Work, and I'm just like, guys, just do this. This is all you need to do. CW, sometimes I take guests, but it really is random. It is random when I take guests. Some lives I take 0, some lives I take a couple. It really just depends on the mood and how many questions I'm getting and stuff like that. Right, Digital Food says, were you called a hypocrite for not sleeping with their mom? No, because I definitely slept with their mom. What's up, Lauren? Good to see you again. Obis says, I'm in one of the bluest cities, so there's not much I can do. 100% there is stuff that you can do. Obis, please check out the thread. Please check out the work thread. because there is something on there for everybody, even if you were in the bluest city in the bluest state. Jeez Louise says, I'm asking a valid question. Well, let's see here. Let's go find it. When the real counts come back that he lost and she won, will they overturn the 24 election? So, geez Louise, two things about that. Number one, even if there was definitive evidence that there was significant tampering with the vote counting machines and Kamala Harris really did win the 24 election, that is not going to change things politically right now for a couple of reasons. Number one, the representative system that we have of government means that the election does not go to the person that gets the most vote. The election goes to the person who got the most electoral votes. Now, those electoral votes are based on what the state totals are, but after those electors have cast their votes, then that's it. And the election was certified by Congress, and so now Trump is president, all those people are sworn into office. That's not changing anything. Additionally, even if there was like a groundswell for accountability or for changing something, the people who are in charge who could champion that are all Republicans, or they are conservative judges that Trump installed himself in order to run cover for all of his illegality. So yeah, so no matter what any data person finds out about votes being stolen or whatever, the key is still winning the midterms. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Jose Arujo, good to see you again, says, do you think people will follow Don Jr. if he runs in the future? I think so. I think that the name ID thing is enough for a lot of people to just say, all right, that's a Trump. I like Trump. I'm going there. Hunter says, please respond. Does my new opinion hold no water since I voted for him already? Does my new opinion hold no water since I voted for him already? I'm not really sure what you're asking there, Hunter. Like, so I'm guessing what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm guessing what you're saying is that you voted for Trump, but now you have a new opinion, and so we should not judge you based on the fact that you voted for Trump. If that's what you're asking, I completely agree. And I say, if you are new to the anti-Trump coalition, then I welcome you with open arms, my guy. Alrighty, let's see here. Thank you, Rena. Oh, awesome. You know, that was an excellent pinned comment, Rena. Seaflon says, as a conservative, I hope we don't see another Trump ticket. I hope so too, Seaflon. And I would love to convince you to not be a conservative anymore. Suze Natsara says, why do people in the working class still support him? Does not make sense to me. I mean, it makes sense because it's propaganda and misinformation, Suze. When you talk to people who have exited right-wing political spheres, they talk about how cult-like it is and how insular of a community it is, where who you can hang out with and who you can date is completely different if you start questioning the doctrine of Republican philosophy. But also, even the people who are able to break out, that's an issue. But a lot of people, they are not incentivized to break out. They have not seen the information that causes them to break out. And so thanks to billionaires flooding money into our political system and our information channels, all the information that's being put in front of these people is that Trump is a god to the working class, and he is saving America from the threat of immigrants and trans kids and, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see here. Cheese says, what are we going to do about Israel controlling the U.S.? I know you see this. So Israel does not control the U.S. AIPAC, which is an extremely well-funded lobbying organization, does have a lot of influence over our government because they can lose you an election if they put their money behind your opponent. The road is littered with the bodies of politicians that tried to stand up against AIPAC and Israel. The way that we stand up to Israel is we elect politicians who are willing to stand up to Israel. And we have to fight against AIPAC money. We have to fight against AIPAC propaganda and misinformation. And that takes work. And so if a Democratic politician who wants to be able to stand up to Israel still takes AIPAC money because that's the only way that they can win their election, we have to not rate that. We have to not go, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to vote because both the Republican and the Democrat have taken AIPAC money. It is way more important to elect that Democrat just so that we can give them the gavel in the Senate and in the House. Because that's how you actually get a government that's willing to stand up to AIPAC, is you empower the party that is willing to stand up to AIPAC and Israel. Cheese says, I know that what I'm going to try to do, but it's hard to fight against an entity that controls all me. It doesn't control everything. And in fact, anybody that's trying to convince you that our work is futile is completely full of shit. Like, that's what the Republican Party wants you to think. That's what Israel wants you to think. That's what the billionaire class wants you to think, that resistance is futile. So I say, fucking do work in spite of them. Alrighty, let's see here. Average Joseph participate in the primaries. That is accurate. All right. Hey, Captain Trips, I just want to let you know that I'm ignoring you. Sunny D says, do you know how I know Charlie Kirk made difference in the world? The fact people are debating live. Charlie Kirk didn't start that. And in fact, I would say that Charlie Kirk was a destructive element in that because he was lying during all of his debates. He made debate and politics into a sport, more so than it already was. And our side versus your side, where it doesn't really matter how much cheating and lying you do, so long as you can own somebody in a live debate and then cut that for your social media to get you lots of followers, then that counts as debate and politics and productive discourse. Like, no, not even a fucking little bit. I don't think the dude should have been assassinated. I don't condone any kind of violence or property destruction, but goddamn, was he a toxic source of terribleness. I could have phrased that better. Boy, oh boy, was he a toxic element to our culture and our zeitgeist. Obis says the DNC needs to look at more local races like Zoran and Katie Wilson and see what people want. You know, Obis, I don't disagree with you at all, but I encourage everybody out there to have the humility that maybe we are wrong about things. Just because we see the value in progressive messaging like what Mamdani is doing does not mean that that messaging will necessarily work with every single American. There are 330 million of us, and we are as diverse and weird as things get. You know, so the DNC being a big tent and having a bunch of different coalitions to hold together makes it really difficult for them to kind of like unify behind one, you know, overriding message. And so, yeah, I just encourage people to recognize the degree of difficulty that the Democratic Party is operating under, both electorally and message strategy wise. You know, yeah, you know, it's not day and night. It's not black and white. It's complicated. It's nuanced. Cevlon says, I see a lot of things in the social realm as a liberal, but I just have my reservations with both. I can understand that, Cevlon. But let's talk about it. You know, let's pick one thing, and I will make my best case that that having the conservative philosophy towards that one thing is worse than having the left-wing Democratic Party philosophy towards that one thing. Cheese says, do you think it is in Americans' interest to fight in the Middle East? No, I do not. I believe in soft power and diplomacy. And I think that the Trump administration has done everything that it can to ruin our ability to do soft power and diplomacy. He has this like old man, fossilized, you know, old technique of thinking about, you know, American military might and you know, being intransigent and throwing your weight around as the way to get things done, where the Obama administration was actually, you know, normalizing relations with adversarial nations to try to, you know, bring about more global peace. And it was working until Trump got into office. Obis says there needs to be a maximum age for politics. I would agree with that. Sue's Not Sorry says we don't see politics as a sport event and are loyal to our team. I also do not see politics as a sporting event, and I am not just loyal to my team. Delano says, does successful big tent politics require concessions on human rights efforts, such as anti-racism? I don't believe so. I believe that you can be a big tent party and still hold true to your principles of anti-racism. Cephalon says, number one topic is the welfare system. Okay. Do you have as much of a problem with a poor person receiving welfare as you do a rich person receiving, you know, tax loopholes or corporate welfare? You know, when a rich person gets something for free, are you as equally upset as when a poor person gets something for free, Cephalon? And forgive me, I kind of like put some words in your mouth. Like, I don't know what your issue with the welfare system is specifically. But yeah, let's talk about it, my guy. Let's talk about it. All right. Cheese says, why does the left simp for people who would gladly take them into a tunnel if they had a chance? What a weird thing to say. First of all, I don't believe that the left sims for people, and I also don't know what it means for people who would gladly take them into a tunnel. Like, what does that mean? Alrighty, Shay McAdie says, how much EIN tax money has been lost so far with these deportations? I'm not sure what EIN is, but I'm pretty sure lots of tax money. Alrighty, scrolling down the bottom. Cheese. Again, that question doesn't make any sense. Gunboat diplomacy. Funny. Right, Lotus. Velvet says, do you deems China as the cooperative partner or dangerous rival? I think ideally China would be a cooperative partner, but the Trump administration has decided to make China an adversarial nation, where we were working with them and trading with them. China was a reliable ally in trying to, uh, you know, end dictatorships in places like North Korea and stuff like that. But one of the incredible qualities of the Trump administration is that he pushes everybody away from us. And so now China is looking at coalitions with places like Iran and North Korea and Russia and shit like that. So yeah, Trump is turning them into an adversary. Let's see here. Harvey James says, you rock, bro. Love the facts and the help of disinformation by the MAGA cult. Thank you, Harvey James. I appreciate that. Cflon says, definitely more infuriating for the rich staying rich over those that need help getting it. Excellent. Cheese. Congratulations, you're out of here. Alrighty. Cflon says, definitely more infuriating. We're looking for that next comment. I just feel like Dems are opposed to reasonable guardrails on the welfare system. Okay, I think that's interesting, Cflon, because based on what I have seen of the welfare system, like it's really hard. It's hard to get on welfare. And being poor is hard, and so having hurdles to jump over to get assistance, it doesn't seem productive to me. I don't know what specific Democratic politician or policy you think is allowing it to be too easy for people to get on welfare, but let me ask you how you feel about this philosophically. That it would be better for you if it was easier for people to get on welfare because the massive Kafka-esque bureaucracy of getting on welfare is more expensive than people getting on welfare that don't deserve to be on welfare. How do you feel about that specifically? Right. Average Joe PG says, isn't the anti-poor propaganda fairly evident when it's referred to as a subsidy when given to the wealthy, but called welfare when given to the needy? 100%, Average Joe PG. 100%. You are totally right about that. Okay. Royal Pulcredute says the largest welfare in the nation is mortgage subsidies. I don't know. That sounds about right, but I don't know if it's true. Alrighty. Obus says, I don't understand how people see welfare and think that helping other humans with essentials is bad. I think that some people view it as a strain on their tax contributions to the government, where they feel like their lives would be easier if they didn't have to pay so much in tax money to take care of people who could just get a job and, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Obviously, people like you and me, Obus, we know that that doesn't really bear out in the data, and it's actually more economically productive to give people assistance than to make it harder for people to get assistance. But yeah, I get it. It's part of a massive propaganda campaign perpetuated by the billionaire class to demonize those who need assistance because it lets them keep more of their tax dollars. Alrighty. MCAT says, thoughts on this administration completely removing all the checks and balances of democracy? I am against it, MCAT. It is dangerous. It is anti-democratic. It is a mechanism for the Trump administration to become more authoritarian and corrupt. It removes all oversight from those in power. It is, I can't say enough negative things about it. And it should be, in an ideal world, nobody would vote for Republican politicians going forward because of they're letting that happen, because they are standing by, sitting on their fucking hands while the Trump administration is removing all checks and balances, consolidating power, having a fucking cryptocurrency, building concentration camps, denying people due process, etc., etc., right. MCAT says that's the scariest thing right now. I completely fucking agree with that, man. And Pete Hegseth right now is having an emergency meeting with all the heads of the various branches of the military at Quantico for some fucking reason that has got everybody raising alarm bells. Like, that is fucking wildly concerning. Alrighty. Chris says Stein, LOL. What are you trying to get booted for anti-Semitism, my guy? Because you were successful. Diego Vargas says, why do we socialize the losses of banks, but they capitalize their gains? That is the influence of, fucking billionaire influence on the government, where they have been able to carve out enough loopholes in the tax code to make it so that we pay for the research and they get all of the profits. Excuse me. Royal says the mortgage tax deduction costs $100 billion. Interesting. I mean, I don't know where this falls, Royal, because if there is somebody who wants to get a mortgage to buy a house, and that would make them a more stable and financially secure member of society, then, and the tax break helps them do that, then I think that is great. But if a rich fucking asshole with 10 different houses is exploiting the mortgage tax break in order to, inflate their net worth, then obviously I'm against that. So where do you come down on that, Royal? It's welfare we pay for as we should, but we don't get generous when poor people need healthcare. Yeah, completely agree with that. So maybe a salary cap, maybe a net worth cap on whether or not you're able to deduct your mortgage. Maybe if you have more than one house, you're not allowed to. There's a lot of ways in which the rich people fuck us over and steal our tax money, and that's probably just one of many. Sue's Not Sorry says, so difficult to buy a house. Tax base is limited. Yeah, I mean, there are other issues besides, besides the mortgage tax breaks that need to be addressed before we can get people into more homes, as far as, just building more, paying people more, et cetera, et cetera. Housing shouldn't be an investment. I agree with that. Jacob Vargas says, in the 80s, people could rent with minimum wage. Now lawyers have to be roommates to pay rent. Yeah, that's fucking accurate as hell. K. Himchi says, thoughts on DEI and affirmative action. So we have, for a long time in this culture, we had a culture of excluding qualified people just because they were not straight, white, male, etc., Christian, etc. And so affirmative action and DEI policies were put into place to try to balance that out, to try to make it so that an overqualified black person would not lose a job to a less qualified white person, or an overqualified woman would not lose a job to a less qualified man. It is not, as many people on the right have suggested, that less qualified black people and brown people and women and gays are getting jobs because of DEI and affirmative action. It is more about protecting the rights of marginalized communities to get jobs that they are overly qualified for. Jay says, why do you trust a two-party system? Isn't it obvious it's corrupt? That's what I call, that's kind of like an overgeneralization. It's a little hyperbolic, Jay. And so what I would say in response to that is the two-party system is what we have right now. It's not perfect, but I also don't think that it is the cause of a lot of the problems that people ascribe to it. There is corruption in politics, mainly due to things like Citizens United, where people can pour unlimited amounts of dark money contributions into campaigns. But the way that we get out of that is by supporting the political party that is actively trying to dismantle that, and that is the Democratic Party. And so you can engage in the two-party system as a mechanism of dismantling the two-party system, but you just have to be smart about it. Kay Himchi says, thoughts on benefits taken away if you don't work 20 hours minimum, unless ill or disabled. I come down on the side of giving the working people more because they need it. And so, I would support a politician who was trying to get rid of that cap, Kay Himchi. But I'm not really sure which specific policy you are talking about. So depending on what it is specifically that you are referencing, I might want to change my answer. Cflon says, me being politically confused and frustrated at the moment would be an understatement. will continue to be undermined. Open-minded. I appreciate that, Cflon. Trying to find if you responded to my other comment there when we were talking about your life being better if people have an easier time to get welfare. I don't know if you responded to that. Hank says the Democrats are the biggest problems. Your spelling is terrible, and also that is not true, and it's also not a question, so you're out of here. Average Joe PG says, remember, stock buybacks used to be conceived market manipulation, therefore illegal. Yeah, and that changed during the Reagan administration. Sue's Not Sorry says, the battle isn't blue-red, it's a war by billionaires against us. That is accurate, Sue's Not Sue's, but I think it's really important to remember that one political party is on the side of the billionaire class, that the Democratic Party, they take money from billionaires. That is accurate. They need to stay competitive, but they are not as influenced by the billionaire class as the Republican Party is. Billionaires can try to influence the Democratic platform by making it less for the people, but billionaire money hypercharges the Republican platform because it is already pro-billionaire. So then they use billionaire money to get elected. They get elected. They cut taxes for the billionaires, so they have more money. And then the billionaires put that money into electing more Republicans, who then use their power to cut taxes for the billionaires more. And then they have more money, so they put that money into the process, et cetera, et cetera. K. Himchi says, thoughts on China colonizing and G-siding Uyghur Muslims and threats to Taiwan. I am against that no matter who is doing it. K. Himchi. So, yeah, 2 thumbs down on that. Diego Vargas says, this generation will be more poor than our parents. That is accurate. Cam Smith says, thoughts on Trump bringing back tax breaks for commercial lab businesses when it's for R&D. I haven't seen anything about that, Cam Smith. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that, Cam Smith. I would need to read more about that before I opined about it. All right, everybody, we are at about an hour. Nothing is True says DEI isn't race and women only, and we have tax breaks connected to it. Okay, I'm not really sure what you're referring to there. Nothing is True. Did I say something that was contrary to that, or is that just supporting the things that I have said already? Hey, Captain Trips, I'm ignoring you. Carl says, Democrats are always afraid to step over the donor's line of what's accepted. I think it is accurate to say that money influences politics, but I would much rather have a Democrat who wants to govern for the working class but feels hindered by the need to accept billionaire dollars in order to stay competitive against Republicans than a Republican who will take billionaire dollars and then give that billionaire more money so that that billionaire can give the Republican more money, who then cuts taxes for the billionaires to give them more money, et cetera, et cetera. Official Julian says, why do we send so much money to Israel? Because AIPAC is an extremely powerful lobbying organization, and they have convinced politicians to continue sending money and weapons to Israel, otherwise that they will primary those politicians. And we have seen many times in the past that politicians have lost their primaries because AIPAC has turned against them. Additionally, we are still sending money to Israel because the Republicans are in charge of the government, and they don't have a problem with what Israel is currently doing regarding ethnic cleansing, G-side, and war crimes. Jamie says, nothing is true. Did you actually read about those tax credits and who qualifies? Likely says, do you think Talib will be recognized? I don't know what that means, Talib. Is something going on with her? Tammy Conrad says, is it true that the House just passed or put it in forward a bill to pay for the Israeli army veterans? The Taliban will be recognized. Oh, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything about that. And Tammy Conrad, I don't know if that's a real thing. I have not heard anything about that. But there are a lot of things that are real that I have not heard about. Diego Vargas says, how can people in California and New York buy houses if they're not rich? They either win the lottery or win a settlement. Yeah, me and my wife have a pretty good dual income, and we 100% cannot afford to buy a house in California. But yeah, that is an issue with, the what do you call it? Not building houses for the last 40 years in California. Right. Let's see here. Jamie says, not you. I meant the user naming nothing is true, saying DI text, etc. Yeah, that's what I thought, Jamie. That's what I figured. All right, everybody, get in your final questions. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate all of the comments and the gifts and the likes and the shares and everything. your support makes this show possible, and I like doing it, and also I think maybe it's helping. I don't know. I hope so. I hope maybe it is. I don't know. Boy, did I just get real Jewish there. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you have any questions that come up when I am not streaming, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord. I want to be a resource for you guys to use to become better educated about politics and to get more engaged in politics and involved with volunteer organizations like Indivisible and Run for Something and Vote Save America. Like, I want you to be a part of the process. I want you to be better informed. And if I can be a tool for you to become that way, then use me and abuse me. Use me till I'm all used up, as they said. Pamela says, I sent you a DM. Did you just send me a DM? Because I did not see it. But if it is new, then I will look for it. What is the last thing? All right, yeah, Discord. I love the Discord because it's a great resource where you guys can see recommendations for books and podcasts, but also you can see recommendations for work that you can be doing to help stop the Trump administration and get us better politicians in office. And if you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. Obviously, I accept gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube, and subscriber dollars helps a lot. But you can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Link is in my bio, and also I have a store that you can buy things from on my website. Alrighty. So Jamie says, I think it's good to incentivize businesses to hire SSI recipients. Social Security? I don't know what that means, Jamie. So sorry about that. Okay. East meets Westy Bessie says, why don't you have Jessica Craven as a guest? I don't know who that is. I don't typically have guests, but I'm open to it. Fucking HGX Legend says, so can I claim disability because the military prescribed me Tylenol? That I cannot tell you, my guy. Alrighty. Thank you, everybody, again for being here. Really appreciate it. So yeah, do the work, please, guys. We need more people doing the work. Be good to each other. Be good to each other in real life so that people recognize that, the voters are not the problem, that your neighbors are not the problem. Be good to yourselves because self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great Thursday, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.